G'day ladies and gents, it's Fiddle here and welcome back to an exciting new video. Today I'm going to be announcing some of my round 4 tips for the AFL. I know this is a very remarkably different change of pace, but we've got a great few couple of matchups and I'm going to break down exactly why I'm backing each team. Let me know in the comments if you agree or if you think I've got it all wrong. Alright, let's jump into it. So first up, we've got a blockbuster Thursday night clash between Collingwood and Carlton at the G. This is a fiery clash, but I'm backing Collingwood here. Even though they haven't been at their best to start the season, they rise for the big games. Carlton, on the other hand, has struggled early, and with the Pies pressure game, I reckon they'll get the job done. Carlton's just been struggling for the past couple of games, and hasn't really been able to show off any of their real prowess, and it's not like they don't have any good players on their team. They just haven't managed to show it. I mean, this might be Carlton's chance to show off. If they can beat Collingwood, it would be quite the statement. But I think Collingwood's just going to be too strong for them tonight, that night. And yeah, I think they're going to take the win. Alright, next up we have Geelong and Melbourne at GMHBA Stadium, where the Cats host the Demons. Geelong is almost unbeatable at home, and Melbourne has a bit of a patchy start to the season. Unless the D's bring their absolute best, I can't see them taking out the Cats in Geelong. Melbourne's had a really scrappy start against North, just that terrible performance against North, and a terrible performance again against Gold Coast, and I think the Melbourne fans are pretty frustrated that you barely see them turn up to games, and to win against what was around the second worst side last year, and then a pretty mediocre side being the Suns last year as well. And Melbourne is now, I think, 16th or 17th on the ladder, and yeah, it's just not looking good for them. And even though Geelong did have that mishap against St Kilda earlier in round 2, I think that at the end of the day, they will pick it up and they'll be able to smash the Demons out of the ballpark. But yeah, I've got Geelong for that Friday night game against Melbourne. Next up on Saturday, we have the Gold Coast Suns against the Adelaide Crows. Now, I was a bit surprised by this, but I've actually gone for the Crows, mainly because of just their midfield looking like they're in great form. It was a little bit patchy against that game against North Melbourne, and North Melbourne was able to score quite a few points against them, but at the end of the day they did have a pretty solid game against them, and it was a solid win. And even though the Gold Coast Suns will be at home and they have a pretty good track record of winning at home, I think that the Adelaide Crows are going to come out victorious overall, and it would be certainly impressive to see them go. I think what it would be if they win, it'll be 4-0, like the Hawks. It'll be a very good sign for the club, and a lot of the fans will be very happy after a patchy past couple of years, and some pretty scrappy performance over the past couple of years. I think they'll be very happy to see a 4-0 result. So yeah, I've got Adelaide to win that game. Next up on Saturday afternoon at the MCG, we have Richmond versus Brisbane. Now again, Richmond did have that pretty good win over Carlton, and again, I think that was just Carlton's failure to sort of just watch their ball game, and sort of losing things towards the end of the fourth quarter. And the Brisbane Lions have been pretty consistent. They did have a bit of a scare against who was it last round? They did have a bit of a scare against the West Coast Eagles, but they were able to bring that one back and eventually win the game. The Lions have looked sharp early on, and Richmond's defense has been a bit shaky. If Brisbane gets their ball movement going, I can see them running over the Tigers pretty easily. So yeah, I've got Brisbane to win against Richmond at the G on Saturday afternoon. Next up, we have North Melbourne versus Sydney. Now, North Melbourne is a developing side, but I think Sydney is too strong here. They should have a few key players back. and their pressure and speed will cause problems for the Roos. I do think that the Roos might have a better chance of winning against the Swans compared to, say, Carlton or Richmond. But they did have a pretty scrappy game against Adelaide. They were still in the game, but you could see that some of the performance issues that they had over the past couple of years was still sort of there, still showing signs of just a lack of experience and all that. Roos weren't really on top of their game, and even though Sydney has had their fair few of patchy games over the past couple of rounds, they were able to come home victorious over the Dockers last week. Whether that was controversial or not, they were able to win that game, and they are showing signs that they are picking up. But either way, I think this is a pretty even matchup. I think North has a good chance, but ultimately I do think Sydney will be the victorious team at the end of the day. So yes, I've got Sydney to win against North at Marvel Stadium on Saturday night. Next up, we have the Giants against West Coast at Engie Stadium on Saturday afternoon. Again, the Giants have been in really good form, besides that loss against Hawthorn, but then again, Hawthorn's been pretty good over the past couple of rounds. And the West Coast Eagles are just showing no signs of real improvement, losing to the Dockers last week, and they're just not really showing the signs that they should be showing. They very still much are in rebuild mode, and even though West Coast can surprise at times, I'm going with the Giants to win at home. So the Giants to win by, I reckon, a pretty solid margin against the Eagles. Next up on Saturday afternoon, we have Port Adelaide against St Kilda. Now, Port Adelaide is a bit of an enigma. They are pretty tough to beat at home, but sometimes they can drop the ball and lose pretty unbelievably at times when they really shouldn't. And the Saints have showed like good strength at the start of the season, but I think Port's midfield will be way too strong for them, and I reckon that Port Adelaide will be able to beat St Kilda at home. Port did have a pretty good game last week, and St Kilda, even though they had that win against Geelong, I do still think that they won't be good enough against Port Adelaide. So yeah, I'm going to go for Port at the Adelaide Oval on Sunday afternoon. And then last game we have is Freo versus the Bulldogs. Now the Bulldogs have had a pretty good couple of games. Considering the amount of injuries and players they have out at the moment, they've been performing pretty well. They were able to get that win against Carlton, almost won against Collingwood, and obviously have that win against North. Again, North and Carlton, maybe not the biggest teams to boast about, but coming pretty close against Collingwood. They should be pretty proud of that effort. And in my opinion, I really do think they should have won that game. But I just don't think they'll be strong enough against Freo at Optus just because of those injuries. But who knows? They might surprise. But just to be safe, I think I'm going to go with Freo over the Bulldogs at Optus Stadium on Sunday afternoon as well. Alright, so those are my tips for round 4. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, whether you agree or whether you think I'm way off. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next week for my round 5 tips. Enjoy the footy, and I will see you all later.